This is a download from BBC Learning English. To find out more, visit our website.
6 Minute English.
From bbclearningenglish.com.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Neil and joining me, it's Rob.
Hello.
Now, Rob, would you say you're someone who's quite organised?
Oh, I'd like to think so.
What's the best way to organise everything?
You need a to-do list, a list of all the jobs you need to do that you can work your way through.
That's a good idea and something we can include in today's discussion about life admin. Admin is short for administration. That describes the activities and tasks you have to do to make a business or organisation run smoothly. But life admin is administration you have to do to make your day-to-day life run smoothly, like doing housework or paying a bill. And the first thing on my to-do list is to ask you and the listeners a question.
Yes, you wouldn't want to forget that.
So, the website hotels.com commissioned some research about how much time young adults, that's millennials, spend doing life admin. Do you know what proportion of their free time they spend doing life admin tasks? Is it A, a quarter of a day, B, a third of a day, C, half a day?
Based on my personal experience, I would say about a quarter of a day.
Well, we'll see if you're the same as other people at the end of the programme. But as we all know, life admin is necessary, but it can be a bit of a chore, a boring, ordinary task you do regularly.
Experts have studied the subject and looked at how we do it and how we can make it less boring. One of them is Elizabeth Emmons, Professor of Law at Columbia University and author of The Art of Life Admin.
She's been speaking to the BBC Radio 4 programme Woman's Hour and described what she thought life admin is.
Life admin is the office work of life. It's the invisible layer of work that is the kind of thing that managers and secretaries, aka admins, do for pay in the office, but that everyone does in their own lives for free.
She calls life admin the invisible layer of work. So it's work, tasks or chores we carry out that people don't notice we're doing or don't realise we have to do them. It's extra work in our life.
And we don't get paid for it unless we're at work when it is the role of someone to do it, such as secretaries or aka admins. AKA is short for also known as. So secretaries might also be known as admins. That is short for people who do administration.
Right, so we know life admin is boring and we don't get paid for it. And also, trying to renew your house insurance or trying to query a bill with a utility company can be frustrating and feels like a waste of time. A utility company, by the way, is one that supplies something such as electricity, gas or water to the public.
My problem is I never get round to doing my life admin. There are better things to do, so you could say I procrastinate. I delay doing things until later, probably because I don't want to do them.
You are what Elizabeth classifies as an admin avoider. So this is where my to-do list comes in handy, Neil. You have a written record of tasks that could be quite satisfying to cross off as you do them. This is something Elizabeth Emmon has found to work, at least for some people. Let's hear from her again. What type of people did she find get most satisfaction from completing a to-do list?
If you've ever made a list and put things on it that you've already done just to cross them out, then you know the kind of done-it pleasure that goes with that. But actually, I interviewed people, especially the super-doers that I interviewed, actually can find real pleasure in the actual doing of it. And so trying to understand how we can get to that when we have to do it, how we can make it so that there is some meaning in it and some texture and the ways of doing it that please us.
So she was describing the super-doers. These are the people who love admin and would spend an evening putting their book collection into alphabetical order.
Elizabeth mentioned that we should learn from the super-doers and get some done-it pleasure in doing our life admin. We need to find a meaning for doing it. In other words, what it represents, so we can see the benefit of completing our to-do list.
How we find pleasure from doing life admin is different for different people. So personally, I think I'll stick with being an admin avoider. But that might explain why I just got charged extra for not paying my credit card bill on time.
Well, please don't avoid giving us the answer to the quiz question you asked us earlier.
Yes. Earlier I asked researchers, commissioned by Hotels.com, polled 2,000 young professionals about their lives. How much of their free time do they spend doing life admin? Is it A, a quarter of a day, B, a third of a day, C, half a day?
And I said a quarter of a day.
Yes, they spend a quarter of their days carrying out tasks like doctor's appointments, waiting in for packages to be delivered, and doing household chores. Oh, boring.
Unlike this programme, Neil, which is not a chore. One of the words we discussed today.
Yes, our vocabulary today included chore, a boring, ordinary task you do regularly.
We also mentioned admin, short for administration, the activities and tasks you have to do to make a business, organisation, or just your life run smoothly.
We heard AKA, meaning also known as. For example, Rob, AKA the master of 6-minute English.
Oh, thanks very much, Neil. Next, we heard utility company. That's a company that supplies something such as electricity, gas or water to the public. And we also heard how Neil likes to procrastinate. That's delay doing things until later, probably because he doesn't want to do them.
Finally, we mentioned superdoers, an informal term to describe people who get satisfaction out of doing life admin and do lots of it.
Like me.
Well, it's time to go now, but there's plenty more to discover on our website at bbclearningenglish.com. Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.
6-minute English.
From the BBC.
This is a download from BBC Learning English. To find out more, visit our website.
6-minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello and welcome to 6-Minute English. I'm Dan, and joining me is Rob.
Hello.
Here at BBC Learning English, we're always discussing diets.
I am on a seafood diet. When I see food, I just have to eat it.
I suppose there's no chance of converting you to a vegan diet, is there? That seems to be the most talked about food fad at the moment. A fad is something that is popular, but only for a short time.
Of course, veganism, that's not eating or using any products that come from animals, may be more than a fad. It could be a lifestyle that improves our health and the planet, and it could be here to stay. But personally, me becoming a vegan would take some persuading.
I'm sure it would. And in this programme, we'll be discussing the debate about veganism and how it's sometimes difficult to change people's minds. But first, a question to answer. We've mentioned what a vegan eats. But what about a lacto-ovo-vegetarian? Which one of these items can they eat? Is it A, pork, B, fish, or C, cheese?
I'll say B, they can eat fish.
Well, you'll have to wait until the end of the programme to find out. But now, back to veganism. According to some national surveys, there are now around 3.5 million full-time vegans in the UK, and the number is growing.
And what was recently a radical lifestyle choice is slowly moving into the mainstream, or has become accepted by most people as normal.
Advocates of veganism say their healthy lifestyle would also free up space and resources for growing food, and it would help reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, but come on, Dan. Having a meat-free diet means you might not get all the nutrients you need.
Well, this is all part of the debate, Rob. There's always two sides to an argument, and it's something that's been discussed on BBC Radio 4's Farming Today programme. They spoke to Dr. Jutta Tobias Mortlock, a senior lecturer in organisational psychology at London's City University, who explained why views about veganism are so polarised. That means causing people to divide into two groups with opposing views.
This issue touches on personal beliefs, and beliefs always trump facts. And so often when we talk about beliefs, we're touching on important values. Values are the things that guide our opinion over what's right versus what's wrong. And so whenever people argue over whether it's right or wrong to eat meat, they are in fact not debating the facts around this issue. They're actually debating the beliefs about what's moral or immoral about this.
So it seems, in the whole debate about veganism, we are basing our views on beliefs. A belief is something we feel is true or real. Our beliefs are based on our values. Those are the things we think are right and wrong.
And when we argue over the rights and wrongs of veganism, we base it on our values, not hard facts. We talk about our view on what is immoral, so what society thinks is wrong or not acceptable. But basically, there is no right or wrong answer.
That's why we need facts, Rob.
So Dan, what can I do if I want to win you over to becoming an omnivore like me?
But according to Dr. Jutta, there are two main routes to winning someone over. A direct, fact-based approach, or a peripheral route, which might be more effective. Let's hear her explain how it works.
If I'm working with you and trying to get you to come round to my side, I might not focus on the central facts. I might focus on the peripheral stuff around how I'm constructing my argument. I'd look for ways of how they overlap as people. Like, what do they have in common? And that's a way to debate an issue such as this controversial one in a way to get people to feel connected to each other and to actually feel that they value each other as decent human beings.
Interesting. This is a more subtle way of winning an argument. She says we should focus on the peripheral stuff. These are the things that are not as important as the main argument, but are connected to it.
So we could say we're looking for common ground, things that both sides agree on, or at least understand. Dr. Yuta talked about making both sides feel connected, and it's a good point. Even if you don't want to be a vegan, you should respect someone's choice to be one.
Yes, it's all about valuing someone as a decent human being. Decent means good and having good moral standards. Like us, Dan.
Well, they're wise words, Rob. Of course, it would be morally wrong, immoral, not to give you the answer to our quiz question. Earlier, I asked which one of these items can a lacto-ovo vegetarian eat?
I said B, fish.
Sorry, no. That's something they can't eat, but they can eat cheese. A lacto-ovo vegetarian is a person who eats vegetables, eggs and dairy products, but does not eat meat.
No meat? No steak? How can they enjoy eating?
Rob, remember, as decent human beings, we respect all views here.
Just joking. But now I'm deadly serious about reviewing some of the vocabulary we've discussed today.
Okay. Our first word was fad. A fad is something that's popular, but only for a short time.
Next, we mentioned mainstream. Something that is mainstream has become accepted by most people as normal.
Then we had polarized. That describes a situation that causes people to divide into two groups with opposing views.
A belief is something we feel is true or real, and immoral describes something that society thinks is wrong or not acceptable.
We also mentioned peripheral, which relates to things that are not as important as the main argument, but are connected to it. It also means situated on the edge.
And finally, decent means good or good enough.
Don't forget you can learn more English with us on our website at bbclearningenglish.com.
Bye for now.
Goodbye.
6 Minute English.
From bbclearningenglish.com.
This is a download from BBC Learning English. To find out more, visit our website.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Neil.
And I'm Rob.
Now, Rob, would you say that you are an introvert or an extrovert?
What a good question. Well, extroverts are confident in their personality, they're outgoing and comfortable in social situations. So I would have to say that, if anything, I'm the opposite. I'm more of an introvert. I'm really quite shy. I feel uncomfortable in social situations. For example, if I go to a party where I don't know anyone, I usually feel very embarrassed and I find it impossible to start conversations with strangers.
But you do all of this on the radio and videos for BBC Learning English, don't you? Some would say you have to be an extrovert to do what we do.
Ah, well, maybe I'm pretending to be an extrovert, to hide the fact that I'm an introvert. It's quite a common thing, you know.
Well, it might not be so easy to hide in the future, because researchers have developed a computer program that can tell your personality from looking at where you look by tracking your eye movements.
Wow, that sounds pretty high-tech and scary.
Well, we'll learn more shortly. But first, a question on the topic of clever computers. The letters AI stand for artificial intelligence. But what are the letters AI? Are they A, an abbreviation, B, an acronym, or C, an initialism?
OK, I thought that was going to be easy, but I think it's an abbreviation, isn't it?
Well, you'll have to wait until the end of the programme to find out. Sabrina Hopper is a researcher at the University of Stuttgart. She was interviewed on the BBC radio programme All in the Mind. She spoke about an experiment in which they tracked the eye movements of people in real situations. This is what she said about the research. Was she confident the experiment would work in the real world?
The main finding in our study is that it's possible at all to just look at eye movements and then predict something about their personality. And before our study, it was not clear at all if this would be possible from eye movements in such an unconstrained real-world setting.
So, was she confident this would work?
No, not really. She said that before the study, it wasn't clear if it would be possible in an unconstrained real-world setting. Unconstrained here means that there wasn't strict control over the conditions of the experiment. It took place in the real world, so not in a laboratory.
The result of the experiment, or the finding as she called it, was that by following eye movements, a computer program was able to work out the personality of the subjects. Let's listen again.
The main finding in our study is that it's possible at all to just look at eye movements and then predict something about their personality. And before our study, it was not clear at all if this would be possible from eye movements in such an unconstrained real-world setting.
So how does the software work, for example? What are the differences in the eye movements of extroverts compared to introverts?
We still don't really know in detail what makes the difference. We can only tell that there are differences and that we know computer programs that can pick up those differences. Maybe extrovert people look up a lot because they want to look at people's faces, whereas some super introvert person maybe just stares at their own shoes, if you want to take the extreme examples. So probably it somehow changes gaze, but we only know that this information is there and somehow our program figured out how to extract it.
So, how does it work?
Well, that's the strange thing. She said that she didn't really know, at least not in detail. She did say that our personality somehow changes gaze. Gaze is another word for looking at something. So maybe we gaze in different ways depending on our personality. Extroverts may look up more, and introverts, like me, may look down more.
Yes, it was interesting that she said that she didn't know how it did it, but the program somehow managed to figure it out. The phrasal verb to figure something out means to understand or realise something. Time to review today's vocabulary, but first, let's have the answer to the quiz question. I asked, what are the letters AI? Are they A, an abbreviation, B, an acronym, C, an initialism? Rob, what did you say?
I said A, an abbreviation.
Well, sorry, no. AI is C, so to speak. It's an initialism. It's the first letters of the words artificial intelligence, but it's not pronounced like a new word, just the initial letters. Right, time now to review today's vocabulary.
Yes, we had the word extrovert. This describes someone who has a very outgoing personality. An extrovert is confident and socially comfortable.
By contrast, an introvert is someone who is shy and not comfortable in social situations and doesn't like being the centre of attention.
Our report today talked about the findings of some new research. A finding is something that has been learnt, discovered, or indeed found out. It is the conclusion that is reached.
Then we had unconstrained, to describe the experiment which was not carried out in a controlled environment. So unconstrained means not limited or restricted.
Our next word was gaze. This is a word that means our way of looking at something.
Yes, the findings of the research suggest that our personality can affect our gaze.
And this was something the computer was able to figure out. To figure out means to study something and reach an answer to a particular question or problem.
Right, well, you know what I've just figured out.
Do tell.
It's time to bring this edition of 6 Minute English to an end. We hope you can join us again, but until then, we are bbclearningenglish.com, and you can find us on social media, online, and on our app. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
6 Minute English.
From bbclearningenglish.com.
This is a download from BBC Learning English. To find out more, visit our website.
6 Minute English.
From bbclearningenglish.com.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Neil. This is the programme where in just 6 minutes we discuss an interesting topic and teach some related English vocabulary. Joining me to do this is Rob.
Hello.
Now, Rob, we know your main job is to work here at BBC Learning English, but do you have a second job?
There's no time for two jobs, Neil, but if there was, I think I'd take photographs and sell them. I do love photography, so I might as well make some money from it.
Good thinking, Rob. And having a second job, particularly one that involves using your skills and allows you to follow your interests, is called a side hustle.
Yes, a side hustle. It's something more and more of us are involved with these days, and that's what we'll be talking about shortly.
Well, my side hustle should be Quizmaster, because I'm always asking questions, and today is no exception. According to the employee ratings website Glassdoor, which job is thought to be the best to have in the UK this year? Is it A, a software engineer, B, a teacher, or C, an audit manager?
Well, I suspect B, a teacher.
Well, you'll just have to wait until the end of the programme to find out. But let's talk more about side hustles or a second job. For some people, having two jobs is a necessity, a way to make ends meet. That means having just enough money to pay for the things you need.
That's true, but it now seems that more people want to put their skills and passions into practice to make extra money.
According to research by Henley Business School, around 1 in 4 workers run at least one side hustle business, half of which was started in the past 2 years. Those aged 25 to 34 are most likely to be involved, with 37% thought to run a sideline of some kind. A sideline also describes an extra job you do alongside your main job. BBC Radio 5 Live spoke to someone whose side hustle was so satisfying that it turned into her day job. Here is Elspeth Jackson, founder of Ragged Life, to explain why.
It's a different environment entirely because you're leaving essentially a very regular wage that you'd get the same amount in month after month. You can put aside savings, the same amount every month, and you have that certain amount of security. But now I don't think I could go back to one of these big companies because you'd essentially be sacrificing the flexibility, which is something I've become very accustomed to now.
Things have worked out well for Elspeth, but there were risks. For example, leaving behind the security, the safety of a regular job and, of course, a regular income.
Elsbeth liked making rag rugs. This has given her flexibility in her life, and returning to work at a big company would be sacrificing that. That means giving something up or going without it.
And for Elspeth, her side hustle has become a full-time job, and she's become accustomed to her lifestyle. It's become familiar or normal.
The BBC also spoke to Becky May Ford, who works some of the time for a telecommunications company to pay the bills, but spends the rest of her time developing her own crafting company, LBCO. How did she find having two jobs?
I think it just gives me a creative balance. And obviously working for the telecoms firm, it gets me out of the house and gets me to meet people in a social environment. It can be difficult to juggle the two though, definitely. It's definitely a grind. It's a lot harder than people think it's going to be.
So Becky implies that it's not always easy to have a side hustle. The benefit for her is the creative balance, a good mix of doing office-based work, regular tasks and a routine, with working creatively, making things and getting pleasure from it.
But juggling or balancing these two things is difficult, and she described her side hustle as sometimes being a grind. Hard work, tiring and occasionally boring. But overall, it does make her happy.
Now, something that would make me happy is to give you the answer to today's quiz question. Earlier I asked you, according to the employee ratings website Glassdoor, which job is thought to be the best to have in the UK this year? Is it A, a software engineer, B, a teacher, or C, an audit manager?
Yes, and I said B, a teacher. Always the best job in the world.
Sadly not, Rob. Apparently it is C, an audit manager. That is considered to be the best job to have this year. Audit managers are responsible for organising and overseeing internal audits. The result was based on 3 factors: average annual base salary, the current number of job openings, and job satisfaction, according to ratings shared by employees on the website over the past 12 months.
So, sounds like an interesting job for a side hustle. But before I head off for a career change, Let's remind ourselves of the main vocabulary we've discussed, starting with to make ends meet.
When we make ends meet, we have just enough money to pay for the things we need.
Next, we mentioned a sideline, which describes an extra job you do alongside your main job.
Then we had sacrificing. That means giving up something important or going without something.
Accustomed is a word to mean usual or normal. If you get accustomed to doing something, it becomes the normal way of doing it. It becomes familiar.
We also talked about the expression creative balance. That describes getting the best mix of doing creative and uncreative tasks.
And finally, grind describes doing something that is tiring, difficult, sometimes boring, and involves lots of effort.
Well, this programme has not been a grind, Rob. It's been 6 minutes of pleasure. Don't forget, you can learn more English with us on our website at bbclearningenglish.com.
Bye for now.
Bye.
6 Minute English.
From the BBC.